Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we are in in Matthew's Gospel, continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew, and we're in Matthew chapter 27. I'm going to be reading verses 57 through 61. And when we were together last time, Jesus had just died, and God sent all these signs, witnesses that something sacred had happened, something terrible had been done to his child, and the Romans that were there to crucify him understood exactly what God was saying. I didn't mention yesterday that they're not saying this was the Son of God. They're saying this was a Son of God. This was a divine presence that was murdered, that we executed. I don't think this means necessarily believe that he is the Jewish Messiah, but they do believe him to be divine after what has taken place. The Jews themselves, they did not make the same confession of faith, but we also have there another group. It was mentioned yesterday, the women. Today we learn about Joseph of Arimathea, who's going to provide the tomb. From John's Gospel, we learn about Nicodemus, who provides the very expensive, costly ointments for the embalming. Verse 57, when it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. This man came to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus, and Pilate ordered it to be given over to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it over in his new tomb, in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock, and rolled a large stone against the entrance of the tomb and went away. And Mary Magdalene was there, and the other Mary sitting opposite the grave. Okay, so Joseph of Arimathea, we haven't met him yet. We have met Nicodemus, whom we meet in John's earlier. We meet him in John's Gospel much earlier than the crucifixion. He's a member of the Sanhedrin. We're not told that Joseph of Arimathea is a member of the Sanhedrin, but we're told that he's rich. And he must have been a man of significant means to get an audience with Pilate and then to have his request granted. This must be someone that Pilate already was aware of and had a measure of respect for. And we're told that he had become a disciple of Jesus. Arimathea, if it is the town we think it is, was about 20 miles south of Jerusalem. And so it's not surprising that he would be here for these events during Passover week. He must be rich because he owns a garden tomb in Jerusalem, right outside the city walls. He owns a garden tomb that he had hewn out of the rock of the hillside, and it's already ready. It's for his family. It's a new tomb. So all the way back to the time of Abraham, the Jews were burying their dead in caves, and they would make chambers inside the cave, hew them out, in which they would lay a body until the body had decomposed, and then there are only bones left. And then those bones would have been put in an ossuary, in a bone box. And so if he's the rich guy that we're told he is, he would have bought a piece of ground in a hillside, a rocky hillside. He would have had a central chamber excavated, then off of that smaller chambers that were just large enough to slide in a body. We don't know how many chambers, but we know it's a new tomb. Nobody else has been in there. We know from the other Gospels it's large enough to have a bench, a place where someone can sit. So it must have been a significant tomb. And everyone wanted to be buried in Jerusalem. Everyone. The Jews at the time believed that when the Messiah came, he was going to be there in Jerusalem. The dead were going to be raised in part of the Messianic age, and if you were in Jerusalem, you're going to have a front row seat. Everybody wanted to be buried in Jerusalem. And as you can imagine, any small plot of ground that was suitable for a burial place would have been extremely expensive, and he has a large one, and it's brand new. And he wants to put Jesus in it. And it's around sunset. And at sunset, they can't do anything else. So he gets Jesus to the burial place. We know from John's Gospel that Nicodemus purchases the ointment that they would use to embalm the body, but they don't get to embalm the body because it's the end of the day. All they are able to do is take the linen shroud that would have gone the length of Jesus. They would have laid the shroud down, put Jesus' body on the shroud. It would have come up over his head and covered him to his feet. And that's all they were able to do at that point. And evidently they put a face cloth over his face as well. And they would have rubbed him in oils and things like that to embalm his body and wrap it more securely before they placed him, mummified him. They would have wrapped him up before they placed him for good in the tomb. They didn't do any of that. Not what he wasn't wrapped up like Lazarus was. They just put the shroud over him and the face covering on him. And then they closed the tomb with a large stone. And they were closed with large stones to keep out grave robbers and particularly to keep out scavenging animals. And it would have been so large it would have taken several men to have rolled the stone in place. But that's what they do. And the women are there to see what happens so that they can come back on Sunday morning and finish the job that they were not able to finish. Okay. We're going to pick up with verse 62 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.